Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes a change in the game just means a simple shift in perspective. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are listening, keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. We'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, and probably several other places at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. But finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that kindness. Come on by and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a real good one. It is a film that is blowing up the box office for independent cinema. It is getting lots and lots of attention. It's Canadian, it's homegrown, it's gnarly, it's a hell of a lot of fun. It is called In a Violent Nature from writer director Chris Nash. And it's the story of when a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower in the woods, entombing the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 6-year-old crime. His body is resurrected and becomes hellbent on retrieving it. This is a standard slasher with a twist. What Nash does is he shifts the perspective, and it's such a simple move, but it changes the entire thing, and it's such a glorious thing to watch. It's really makes it a fascinating film and a fascinating take on the slasher genre. And we had the unique pleasure of sitting down talking with a friend of the show, thankfully, because it's Johnny. We don't want to fuck with Johnny, right? The one and only Barrett, who stars in this film, and we talked with him about working with Chris and working on this project, and just the ride that he's been on, as it were, with this film, going to Sundance and doing a whole bunch of stuff. We've known Rye for a while. He is a hardworking Canadian genre actor, so if anyone thinks this is an overnight success, it is not. He's been in the business for a minute, but if you haven't already, go check out In a Violent Nature in theaters now. And if you have already, go back, because it's a lot of fun. It's a hell of a good movie. But first, enjoy our conversation with Rye Barrett, because, well, I enjoyed the hell out of that one, too. All right, well, I mean, just to kick this off officially, Rye, man, just, obviously, thank you so much for the time. And, I mean, goddamn, man, congrats on the movie. It's a hell of a fucking ride. I love it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, I mean, I guess the first question is, walk me through, I guess, Chris initially bringing this idea to you. Were you having to read for it or whatnot? Because I know Chris has been bouncing this idea in his head around for a while, right?
Yeah, he was, and they had already done work, a lot of work on the film, and then they contacted me. Shannon Hanmer contacted me. I think Michael Regan had mentioned her, and we had known each other, like, not personally, but like each other's work, things that we had all done, and they got in contact with me and let me know the idea, and I was all for it. I saw what they were doing, and they showed me the just kind of the base idea of it and what it was going to be, and I was just stoked to be on board for it.
Was there any kind of trepidation? I mean, maybe even on your part, just because obviously, we've seen sort of the serial killer, the slasher, we've seen that motif, but I mean, just the simple fact that he's basically behind you the entire movie changes the tone and the perspective of it so much. Like, did that affect you sort of in a performance standpoint? Like, were you kind of conscious of that, or did you have to kind of turn that off?
No, it was something you had to kind of be conscious of the whole time, just because of knowing the camera angles and the distance, trying to keep like me and Pierce Dirks, it was our cinematographer. We kind of had to do this bit of a dance the whole time, just kind of constantly being aware of each other, and to specifically, like, one thing is that the mask, there were different versions of the mask. So there was some masks that had like an open face so that I could see better when I was walking through some of the scenes. So if I was turning, if I turned too quickly, you'd be able to see that.
Right.
So I kind of had to signal Pierce ahead of time with a bit of a, a body turn before doing the full turn. So little things like that, and then just keeping a pace so that we were the same distance the whole way through. So that was one part of it. And then there were other moments like during the kill scenes and stuff that wasn't so much. That was more of do what needs to be done to kind of fit what needed to be there for those segments to work.
Love it. No, I mean, I love that you bring up the idea of that this was almost a dance, because I mean, obviously you got your steps in while shooting this.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, how much of it really did come down to sort of, okay, step, move here. Okay, ground's a little uneven here. You got to shift over here. Like, it really does feel like this is something you would have probably definitely had a serious walkthrough on before you guys had the camera rolling on it.
Yeah, we do. We basically, like, they'd go ahead of time. Nash would find a path with Pierce. They'd kind of look at, like, what was the most visually pleasing or what would suit the scene. And then we'd do a walkthrough ourselves just to see exactly where we were going. And then we'd do a series of shots, depending on how smooth they went, and how long we went for. But we usually do at least 2 walkthroughs for each kind of walking segment, and depending on how smooth they were, and yeah, if they were going to work or if something needed to change, then we'd sort of tweak it.
No, I mean, I've got to ask you about something. One of the kills specifically. I mean, we'll just call it the yoga scene. I mean, I think you'll figure out what I'm talking about. But like, can you walk me? Because I mean, obviously, this is all in camera stuff, and you've got to be there, kind of physically doing it. Like, what is the rig? What is the sort of mindset of the moment to really have to be able to pull that off and sell it physically?
That, I mean, that's that specific scene, and like all of the big effects scenes, they're all they're so thought out ahead of time and so designed. Like that specific scene, the yoga scene, is exactly like line for line what was in the script,
Mm.
which is very cool, because a lot of times you'll read scenes like that and they're not what ends up on screen. They don't they don't necessarily translate. They're either too hard to do, or you don't have the time to do them, or the right effect isn't working. But this was one where every single thing happened. And that specific scene it was so cool to just be there too, as a fan of special effects, like practical effects myself, and just getting to watch it all come together, and then being there right in the middle of it. I'd kind of do a movement, they'd catch that movement on camera, whatever it had to be, and then I'd step out, and practical effects would come in. Like, the team would come together, and there'd be different colors and viscous of blood and guts and different body parts, and all that would come into play. And then I'd step back in and do the part that I need to do, and then I'd step back out, and it's a whole process like that. So it takes a lot of time, patience, and a lot of work, mostly on the special effects team. A lot of the time I'm just standing there watching and just kind of in awe of watching it come together.
Now, I mean, full disclosure for everyone listening, Ryan and I've known each other for a while, and I mean, it's hard to believe it's almost been a decade since the Demolisher, and there's some similarities between Bruce and Johnny, but I mean, here with this film, I love the idea of kind of stripping away the empathy of it all, if that makes any kind of sense. And I mean, you've done a fair share of horror movies, but I've never seen a movie like this where, and I mean, I'm trying to make this sound the right way, but for a lack of a better word, we don't necessarily care if the people get killed or not. We're just kind of there for the ride. And I mean, when you going into it, like, does that kind of change your perspective as quote unquote the killer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does to a degree, because you don't have to work on the other kind of side of it, the other side of the coin, to make people kind of understand where you're coming from. And it's funny that you mentioned the Demolisher too, because me and Jess, we've noticed there's multiple little, just weird little things that are very similar, actually, in a totally different way, in a totally different film. But if you were to watch them back to back, you'd notice those too. But it's funny doing something like that and then something like this where you do just get to hide behind the mask and the creature itself and just kind of be that. And like there is that one moment where you a bit of a spoiler here, you do see a little more of Johnny, and you get to there's a moment of almost empathy there for
Right.
some
Yeah.
people, maybe not for others, but it's cool too because you just watched him do all these horrible things, and then you get that moment, and then he goes right back to doing even more horrible things right afterwards. So it's kind of a fun manipulation of the audience there.
Now, I mean, did you get to like, were you basically doing most of it? I mean, even from the beginning, sort of coming out of the dirt, was that all, was that 100% you?
Yeah, yeah. Everything you see of Johnny on screen is all me. There there might be like a hand at one moment or something that might have been Chris with the
Right.
glove on,
Right.
because I wear these prosthetic gloves through the whole thing. Um, Maybe that. I think everything on screen is me though. I'm pretty sure. From what they had shot before, I think the only stuff that made it into the film is like establishing shots. And I don't even know how much of that is from before or from the shoot that we did.
Right. Right. Now, I mean, I gotta ask because I mean, obviously, people are gonna see you and they're gonna see this movie and at least from the instance, sort of not realize it's Canadian because obviously, you got to go to Sundance and it's been picked up and there's been this great success. But I mean, you've been working at this business for a minute, man. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, how has this ride been compared to kind of others? Because I can imagine, especially when you're going into something like this, like you never know until until things are happening after the fact, right?
Yeah, no, it's been crazy. Like we've had some moderate success with other films and gotten to go to some great festivals and do a ton of great things and I'm equally as happy for all the great things I've gotten to do with that. But this one's just been one of those things where it's out of nowhere. How big it kind of exploded when Chris called me and said we were going to Sundance. I was just kind of like it didn't really fully register at first, and then we went, and that was wild. Just the whole experience, and then getting to do everything else that we've done. Some of the promotional stuff. Went down to New Orleans to the Overlook Film Festival. Was dressed up as Johnny and walked around scaring people there, and then was at New York on Governor's Island for this outdoor screening that was absolutely insane too. And I did the same thing, dressed up as Johnny. It's the IFC marketing team and Shutter have been crazy with how well they've been marketing and pushing the film and just how much they believe in it. So that whole part of it is something I've never experienced until now, and I'm just kind of along for the ride at this point. I don't know what's next.
Well, and I mean, I've got to imagine that's interesting, sort of donning the fodder and sort of walking around with it because I mean, obviously, I mean, you're a big dude. Kane Hodder was a big dude. I mean, the people who get to play these parts are big dudes. And it's one of those things where I'm kind of curious, how do you feel? I guess I like, can you measure yourself up to other sort of cinematic killers in that perspective, or do you just sort of have to sort of roll Johnny up into its own experience?
Yeah, I mean, I try to just do what kind of what Johnny is, but then also being a huge fan of horror and slasher films and everything growing up too, and obviously Kane Hodder and Robert England, and there's so many of them, just like creature performers and character performers doing these kind of creature and monsters and stuff. So it's yeah, you watch those films, and I did watch a million of them, and talk to Chris about it, and it was kind of one of those things where we wanted to give homage to a lot of them, but not copy anyone specific, and kind of take little elements and give nods here and there, but not like it's probably the closest to Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th, just as like an entry point for the audience. So that was the one kind of thing, but then we didn't want to kind of exactly copy that character, blend in different elements, Michael Myers and characters from The Burning and Prowler and all these different ones. But yeah, it's hard to not think too much on one of those characters and to just kind of try and do your own thing.
Well,
But
there's a
that's
legacy
what we
there for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, just to start putting a bow on this, I mean, I'm kind of curious because obviously, like I said, you've been doing this for a minute, and I mean, to me, when I watched this movie, what made it so unique was that I wasn't necessarily scared of Johnny, but I was horrified. Like it was more of a being horrified by Johnny rather than being sort of having this visceral being terrified by Johnny. Like, how do you sort of as an actor try to embody the difference? Because to me, when I was watching it, it wasn't necessarily I was scared. I was like, something horrible's about to happen because this guy just walked in the room.
Yeah, like I guess the difference, the big difference here is that you're with Johnny the whole time. So
Yeah.
it's not about the jump scares, and it's not about the where is he and when's he going to pop out sort of thing. That shock element. This is much more about the build of you see what's going to happen, you know what's going to happen, and it's that like it's kind of like the going up the hill on the roller coaster, that first hill. You get to see that
I
whole
like that. I
moment,
like that.
and then once the kill starts, you're going down the ride and you're there for it. So it's kind of like it was fun to know that ahead of time, and then to kind of how can that work and figure it out. And one of the things I did was actually watch animal attack videos, bear, specifically bear attack videos too. There's an analogy in the film. It's not supposed to be a direct tie, but it's something kind of to base off of. And just just when you watch those videos, you can see how animals are just so natural and sort of serene in their setting, but the second they go into attack mode, they just become this different animal, a different fluid motion to them. Just it's chaos and it's violent, and it's kind of what I wanted to do with Johnny, with the change in pace and the movements. And I think it works for what that is, because then you can flow into those scenes and then just kind of kick it into gear.
Whose idea was the hooks? Because I mean, it could have easily been a machete or an axe or a something, but the hooks were just different enough to be like, okay, that's cool.
That's all Chris. That was all in the script. He came up with the whole idea of the mask too, is a an old smoke jumper, like a firefighting mask, and then the drag hooks. That it's all to do with forestry and like the lumber business and everything. Like all that stuff has been used in the past and everything. And so he wanted to incorporate all those things that might actually be in that setting that Johnny could kind of grab and use at his disposal.
Fantastic. Now, I mean, this is the loaded question, but it's the one I gotta ask. But it's like you kind of said before. Like on one end, there's so much about this film that is a gateway kind of into the genre for people who've never really experienced it before. But at the same time, there are so many rewards for the horror fan who are sort of steeped in the knowledge of it all. And I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, what is your hope for audiences to pull away from it? Because I mean, again, you're the film navigates a really kind of tricky line, but it does it so well because it's gonna please both sides of the aisle because you managed to walk right down the middle with it.
Yeah, that's the I think the hope for the experience is just to see something different. Like it's brought in a different perspective for a reason, because we've seen this other story been told so many times and over again, and ad nauseum at this point. And it if these films are going to be made, then like doing something different, doing something new and fresh to give them something worthwhile, other than just being a retread of the exact same thing. The other thing is that sometimes people want that exact same thing too. So it's some people just aren't. This isn't going to be the film for them, and that's totally fine. But I think the people who are looking for and who are big fans of the slasher genre and horror in general, and want to just see a different perspective, a different take on it, but with a lot of the same, those nods and the love of the whole thing. I think that those people are really going to enjoy it and have a great time with it, and go back and revisit it and kind of pick it apart and see all those elements that are there on purpose. And there's a sense of humor to it too. Like there's specifically funny moments in there that I hope people
Oh, totally. Like,
realize
yeah.
that that's supposed to be there too. So
No, I mean, I'm curious. I've got to ask because Johnny, I think, has the chance to sort of be one of those legacy slasher characters in the genre. But I think if we don't go back into the woods with him, from your perspective, would you want to go back into the woods with Johnny, or do you think the tale of Johnny is better left where it is right now?
It's a hard question too, because it is kind of designed to just be a one-off.
Yeah.
But then also it's funny too, because it's almost like this film is the second installment in a series, or the
Right.
third installment in a series too. So it
Yeah.
almost is a sequel in a weird way. But and I don't know if Chris like we there's been a lot of talk, and what would that be, and how to approach it and do something like different too. But I mean, I'd 100% be back. I'd 1,000% be back to play Johnny if I get the chance.
But you know what? Trilogy. I like that, because you're right. It's right in the middle. You do a prequel, you do a sequel.
There we go. Yeah.
But I mean, Ryan, man, just obviously, thank you again for the time. I mean, just congrats on this. We've known each other for a minute. And I mean, I'm just so happy to see the success that you guys have been having with this film. And I mean, just keep it up, man. Enjoy the ride. Seriously.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the support. And no, it's been a lot of fun.
For sure, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.